The afternoon is soft, a warm light slanting through the blinds, dust motes drifting like small constellations. You sit at the kitchen table with a mug cooling in your hands, and across from you, your dog lifts his head and leans in. A single lick, gentle, deliberate, lands on your knuckle. It feels like a punctuation mark in a long, wordless conversation. Reassurance, history, the echo of every morning you stayed and every night you returned. For many of us, that lick reads as love, and we smile because it fits the story we've always told ourselves about companionship. But sometimes the knocks at the door don't stop with a knock. The licks come faster, then faster still, urgent, repeated, impossible to ignore. They arrive at your wrist, your face, your hand, sometimes fixated on one spot as if trying to erase something you cannot yet see. That insistence carries a different tone. It can be a plea disguised as affection, a habit learned because you always respond, a release of anxiety when the rhythm of the day breaks, or a small flare from a sore paw no one examined. The same tongue that signs love can, under pressure, spell distress. Listen to the moment. Where is the lick aimed? Measure how hard and how often it repeats. Note what was happening just before the first touch. These are small, almost invisible clues that shift meaning from adorable to alarming if you allow them to add up. And be honest about your own role. A laugh, a soft touch, the immediate attention you give. Because dogs learn consequences faster than we notice the pattern we created. A gesture that began as affection can become a crutch when the dog discovers that a lick always brings what it wants. If you've ever watched this exchange and felt unsure, guilty for laughing, worried for ignoring it, you are not alone. In the next moment, I'll show a simple, clinical test I use with clients. A predictable, calm task that reveals whether the lick is pure tenderness or a silent plea for stability. Before that, tell me, what's the one behavior your dog does that leaves you puzzled? If this resonates, leave a like, and if you want to follow the next step, consider subscribing, then watch closely as we try the test together. Morning light slants through a kitchen window as Maria rubs her temples and the small labradoodle circles her feet, licking the edge of her sandal like a metronome. At first it feels like warmth, a punctuation of comfort. But then the licks grow faster, insistent as a knocking that won't stop. This is where the question lives. Is this kiss or a cracked alarm bell? Start by watching the moment. Notice what happened just before the first lick. Did you return from work? Did the vacuum start? Did a guest sit down? Context is a language dogs speak fluently. Measure the intensity. A slow, gentle tongue across your wrist says, "I'm here with you." A frantic, repeated tongue pressed against your face, pawing and whining, reads like anxiety translated into movement. Note the target. Lips and face can be affection. Paws and a specific patch of skin might be trying to tell you about pain or itch. Floors and windows can be boredom projected outward. I remember a man named Daniel who thought his border collie was simply affectionate. He would laugh, reach down and say, "Who's my lover?" every time the dog licked his hand. Within weeks, the dog had learned a loop. Lick, get attention, laugh, pet. A tidy lesson in cause and effect. The gesture that began as bond had become an automatic ticket to stimulation. Dogs learn faster than we expect, and we often are their unwitting teachers. There are moments when licking is a release, a displacement of conflict, a storm we can't see but that ripples through their body. Imagine a thunderstorm of old routines. Walks shortened, visitors turned away, energy piling up like unread mail. The tongue becomes a valve. And sometimes the tongue is a red flag. A small sore on a paw, a hot patch of skin, a tooth that throbs. The look on a dog's face can shift from soft to guarded. The licking focuses and intensifies. So how do you tell? Watch, measure, and note, and then change one variable. Replace the spontaneous reaction you always give with a calm, predictable action. A short, scripted pause. A quiet breath. A consistent down command followed by a timed treat. Try that experiment in your next minute with your dog and notice what unravels. In the next part, I'll walk you through that test step by step and show what each outcome actually means for your dog and for your peace of mind. The room is soft with late afternoon light. A mug of tea cools on the table, and your dog sits by your knee, tongue flicking like a small tide. At first a lick reads like a note, warm, immediate, affectionate. But notice the moment. Did it arrive the second the TV went silent, when a stranger appeared at the door, or right after you ignored a whine? That timing is the first clue. Watch the moment, measure the intensity, note the target. Those 3 simple observations will change how you understand every lick. Intensity is a language of its own. A featherlight brush across your hand is almost ritual. Bonding, a soft seal on the connection you already share. A frantic, repeated assault on your face or a paw that's never left a sore spot tells a different story. Anxiety, displacement, or pain. The target sharpens the picture. Licking your palm may be a request for attention. Licking the air, the floor, or obsessively at a single paw often points inward, towards stress or a hidden physical issue. I remember a woman, 48, with a golden retriever who licked until her knuckles were damp. Every time he licked, she laughed and said, "Good boy," then reached down to pat and answer his demand. Within days, the lick had become a lever. He learned, produce the lick, receive immediate reaction. We, without malice, teach them that lick equals response. Our smiles and hands are reinforcement as powerful as any treat. But not all learned licking is manipulative. Sometimes it's a valve. After a thunderstorm, a Labrador paced and licked the carpet until the anxious tremor eased. That was release and emotional outlet. Or consider a retired couple who altered their day. Shorter walks, fewer engagement rituals. Their dogs licking spiked, a quiet plea for the old rhythm. Boredom and pent-up energy often masquerade as affection. Try a tiny experiment now. When the lick begins, don't laugh or touch. Instead, offer a calm, predictable task, sit, then a measured pause and a quiet treat only when the task is performed. Watch for the reaction that arrives in seconds. If the licking fades, you're likely extinguishing a learned attention-seeking behavior. If it escalates or redirects to a paw, you may be facing stress or discomfort. Does that make you curious to see what each reaction really means and how to respond? If so, like and tell me. What's your biggest question about your dog's behavior? And consider subscribing to follow the next steps. There's a small ritual that tells you almost everything you need to know, if you learn to watch like a careful reader. Notice the instant the tongue meets skin. What was happening seconds before? Is the house quiet or chaotic? Did you just come through the door with grocery bags? Or did the vacuum stop humming? Measure the lick. A gentle brush that pauses, eyes soft and tail slow is a bonding touch. A frantic, repeated lick that escalates in speed and targets the same spot. A paw, the top of your hand, the gap between your fingers, is a signal pushed beyond affection. And note the target. Mouths and faces often mean relationship and reassurance. Paws, flanks, or a single sore spot demand inspection. Picture an evening on the couch. Rain on the windows. You reach for the remote, and your dog leans in, licking your wrist. You laugh, scratch behind the ear, say, okay, and stand. That small exchange, repeated a few evenings, becomes a rule in the dog's mind. Lick, and everything pivots toward you. Attention, petting, sometimes food. What started as a love note becomes an instrument. Owners teach this without malice. We soothe with words, reward with touch, or break our routine to respond. The dog learns that licking is an effective key. To see the truth fast, try a simple, clinical experiment I use with clients. The next time your dog begins a bout of insistence, don't immediately respond. Instead, perform a neutral, predictable task. Quietly fill a water bowl, fold a towel, or close the door for exactly 60 seconds. Keep your movements calm, your voice minimal, and your attention neutral. If the dog settles, turns away, or offers other behaviors, chewing a toy, sniffing, the licking was likely an attention-seeking habit or boredom. If the licking intensifies or is fixated on one spot despite your steady task, consider stress, internal conflict, or discomfort. That's a cue to examine body language more closely or call the vet. It's a small experiment with a big payoff. You can shift a lifetime of learned patterns with predictable, gentle consistency. If this resonates, tap like, Leave your question about your dog's quirks below and stay with me. Next, we'll turn those observations into a clear, step-by-step plan to change the rule your dog lives by. Imagine the late afternoon light pooling on the living room rug. Your dog pads over, nose quivering, and places a tongue on your hand. Watch closely. The moment matters. A single, slow lick that follows a long gaze is a soft hello. A small tidal pull that speaks of comfort and belonging. But if the tongue returns again and again, urgent and insistent, the tempo changes. Measure the intensity. Gentle, intermittent, or rapid, repeated, almost frantic. Note the target. A cheek, a fingertip, your shin, the air beside your face. Each detail is a letter in the message. Then notice yourself. We laugh, we say, ah, we reach to stroke, and without meaning to, we teach a simple equation. Lick equals attention. Dogs are exquisitely economical learners. If a lick reliably produces touch, talk, or an offered treat, that behavior will escalate like a flame finding air. What began as affection can harden into a request for relief, a habit that masks boredom, anxiety, or a sore spot. I've sat in quiet homes where this loop was the only rhythm they both knew. The person giving intermittent reinforcement, the dog offering repeated reassurances. Here's a small clinical test I use with clients. When your dog approaches with licks, take a breath and intentionally do nothing for 3 to 5 seconds. If the licking fades and your dog settles, you've likely seen a social, comforting gesture. If it intensifies, shifts to frantic pawing, or the dog seeks the same spot again and again, you're likely witnessing a plea for structure, for stimulation, or for relief from discomfort. Now offer a calm, predictable alternative. A mat, a chew, a simple nose target cue. Give the task quietly, with no fanfare, and reward calm compliance rather than the lick itself. The reaction will tell you the story. Does your dog accept the routine and relax? Or keep circling, restless and insistent? If pain is suspected, licking at one paw or an isolated patch of skin, pause and consult your vet. Otherwise, this small experiment becomes a doorway. You learn whether the lick is an offering of love, a learned shortcut to attention, or a symptom of something hiding beneath the surface. What question about your dog's behavior keeps you awake at night? If this resonated, a like helps others find it, and if you want more, stay with me. Next, we'll turn these clues into a clear plan you can try tonight. You learn to listen to the lick, the soft press on your hand that melts a hard day, the frantic tongue that won't stop at bedtime, the tiny, repetitive nudge at the ankle when you're late. Now imagine the quiet room where that pattern first began. A couch half lit by afternoon sun, the thump of the television, your hands already trained to laugh, to scratch, to answer. That scene is the origin story for many habits. Licking starts as affection, and somewhere along the way it can become a demand, a ritual, an escape. So what do you do when the line blurs? Start by watching the moment. See the trigger and note the target. Is the tongue seeking your face, your fingers, a patch of fur, or the air as if searching for scent? Measure intensity. A single gentle greeting or a compulsive, insistent barrage that leaves you unsettled? Those two clues, moment and intensity, are a small, powerful map. Add the target and the picture resolves. A request for connection, a learned ticket to attention, a discharge of emotion, or a red flag for pain. Practical change is simple and steady. Stop rewarding the urgent lick with immediate reactions. Replace the emotional quick fix with a calm, predictable ritual. A 5-second pause, then a gentle task you always offer. A hand on the chest, a soft click and a chew toy. A short sit command followed by measured praise. If the behavior eases in seconds, you've likely unearthed attention-seeking habit. If it persists, investigate comfort. Check paws, skin, joints, and a vet exam. Enrich the day with predictable walks, puzzles, and roles that channel energy into work instead of repetition. There's tenderness in discipline. Teaching your dog to wait for steady attention turns frantic licking into a quieter conversation. If this helped you reframe a familiar gesture, a tiny like here tells others they aren't alone. Tell me in the comments, what's your biggest question about your dog's behavior? Subscribe for more gentle, practical ways to understand the language behind the lick.